There's a really interesting article this morning in The Guardian by a research fellow in New York called Rajan Menon, and he's talking about President Putin and about Donald Trump's twin track strategy of obsequious flattery and blustery condemnation in his dealings with Vladimir Putin. Trump, whose confidence in his own diplomatic prowess is matched only by his historical illiteracy, appears bewildered that Putin hasn't responded in kind to his overtures, and Menon traces this trajectory with academic sobriety, one that leads not to peace in Ukraine but to more missiles, more drones, more death. But I would propose an additional layer of analysis, one that moves beyond realpolitik and into the metaphysical. You see, for the last 6 years, perhaps longer, Vladimir Putin has not been Putin, or rather, Putin the individual has been replaced by Putin the concept. And the image projected to the world is a mythological construct, part Tsar, part warlord, part eternal Kremlin operator. And whether the man himself still governs, or indeed is even still alive, still exists in any meaningful cognitive sense, is irrelevant to the image. Putinism survives as a kind of autocratic necromancy, an ideology disembodied and now operated by an increasingly opaque cadre of functionaries, algorithmic tacticians, and icy-eyed strategists who inhabit the sealed inner sanctum of the Russian state in the Kremlin. What we are seeing is not a personal response to Trump, but the immune response of a system that has become post-human. Criticism doesn't touch it. Praise doesn't penetrate. It's like negotiating with God, or worse, with the bureaucratic God of Genesis 19, willing to entertain Abraham's entreaties only to destroy Sodom and Gomorrah anyway. And as with the Lord, who went ahead with his genocide and reluctantly allowed a couple of refugees to escape, the system may allow for Lot and co. to get out, but on its terms and under some angelic escort, and the terms were extreme. One of the refugees was turned into a pillar of salt. Trump, by contrast, is a man of flesh, ego, and spectacle. He believes that every international conflict is a reality show and every autocrat a fellow contestant. His attempts to alternately cajole and condemn Putin read like the tantrums of a Shakespearean minor villain who cannot understand why the ghost of Banquo won't leave the feast. Menon is correct to say Trump assumed that his leverage, military aid, personal charisma, and global media attention would be enough to draw Putin to the negotiating table. But that assumption presupposes a shared world of logic and incentives. It presupposes that the Putin that we see is real and can actually make decisions. It presupposes that Putin might want a deal, or that there is a table at all, of any length. Trump hasn't been negotiating with a man, but with a theatre act, an elaborate mise-en-scène designed to dazzle, deflect, and delay. When Trump cries, "Vladimir, stop!" as though tweeting at a wayward celebrity, he reveals how fundamentally unserious his approach actually is. Even his threats of sanctions are hollow. He's not dealing with a statesman who fears reputational harm, but with a regime that trades in opacity and thrives on siege mentality. And this brings us back to the idea of Putinism as theology. A theology doesn't change course because of poor polling. It persists because it's self-validating. That's the idea of God. Just as medieval scholastics could justify divine wrath through labyrinthine logic, so too do Kremlin apparatchiks frame every atrocity as a necessary defense of Russian civilization. Martyrdom is baked in. They expect losses. They anticipate sanctions. They welcome suffering, for it confirms the narrative of a West bent on destroying Russia. Every criticism of this campaign, this special military operation, is Russophobia. Thus, when Trump demands compromise, it's akin to demanding that the book of Job be rewritten with a happier ending. The script's already been written, and Trump is not the author. One must spare a thought for Mr. Zelensky, too. As men on notes, he has played the good student in Trump's political classroom, accepting ceasefires, attending summits, showing up in Ankara with an air of weary hope, but it avails him nothing. Why? Because Trump cannot deliver Putin, and Putin, or the void where Putin once stood, will not be delivered, except through some sort of exorcism. Trump's failure is not simply the failure of a man to sway another man. It's the failure of an egoist, to understand that he's not speaking to a human individual. He's shouting into a myth. And that myth, like the god of Sodom, listens only long enough to reject your plea. It's hit or myth, and mostly myth. So long as the West pretends that Putin is a rational actor with incentives and pressure points and a genuinely receding hairline, it will remain several steps behind. What we are witnessing is not diplomacy, it's ritual theatre, and Trump, God help us, is trying to play Iago in King Lear. He's got the wrong play, he's got the wrong approach, he's got the wrong character. We mustn't confuse noise for strategy or performance for substance. When we need to stop pretending that Putin can be flattered into reason. One cannot flatter a ghost. Putin, to all intents and purposes, Putin is dead. He's in a smeg fridge. When you bash on the door of the smeg fridge, what you hear is the rattle of the ice. The Putin we see has long since ceased to exist as an individual. He is wheeled out as an idea, as a concept, as a myth. Much like El Cid, he's walked out of the pages of history into mythology.